Attention is all you need. Abstract. The dominant sequence transduction models are based on complex, recurrent, or convolutional neural networks that include an encoder and a decoder. The best performing models also connect the encoder and decoder through an attention mechanism. We propose a new simple network architecture, the transformer, based solely on attention mechanisms, dispensing with recurrence and convolutions entirely. Experiments on two machine translation tasks show these models to be superior superior in quality while being more parallelizable and requiring significantly less time to train. Our model achieves 28.4 BLEU on the WMT 2014 English to German translation task, improving over the existing best result, including ensemble by over 2 BLEU. On the WMT 2014 English to French translation task, our model establishes a new single-model state-of-the-art BLEU score of 41.8 after training for 3.5 days on 8 GPUs, a small fraction of the training costs of the best models from the literature. We show that the transformer generalizes well to other tasks by applying it successfully to English constituency, parsing both the large and limited training data. 31st Conference on Neural Information Processing Information System, NIPS 2017, Long Beach, California, USA. Introduction. Recurrent neural network, long short-term memory, and gated recurrent neural networks in particular have been firmly established as state-of-the-art approaches in sequence modeling and transduction problems such as language modeling and machine translation. Numerous efforts have since continued to push the boundaries of recurrent language models and encoder-decoder architectures. Recurrent models typically factor computation along the simple positions of the input and output sequences, aligning the positions to steps in computation time. They generate a sequence of hidden states ht as a function of the previous hidden state ht-1 and the input for position t. This inherently sequential nature precludes parallelization within training example, which becomes critical at longer sequence length, as memory constraints limit batching across examples. Recent work has achieved significant improvement in computational efficiency through factorization tricks and conditional computation, while also improving model performance in case of the latter. The fundamental constraint of sequential computation, however, remained. Attention mechanisms have become an integral part of compelling sequence modeling and transduction models in various tasks, allowing modeling of dependency without regarding to their distance in the input or output sequences. In all but a few cases, however, such attention mechanisms are used in conjunction with a recurrent network. In this work, we propose the transformer, a model architecture as showing recurrence and instead relying entirely on attention mechanism to draw global dependencies between input and output. The transformers allowed for significant more parallelization and can reach a new state-of-the-art in translation quickly. Translation quality after being trained for as little as 12 hours on 8 P100 GPUs. Background: the goal of reducing sequential computation also forms the foundation of the extended neural GPU, ByteNet, and conv-S2S, all of which use convolutional convol- convolutional neural networks as basic building block, computing hidden representations in parallel for all input and output positions. In these models, the number of operations required to relate signals from two arbitrary input or output positions grows in the distance between positions linearly for conv S2S and logarithmically for ByteNet. This makes it more difficult to learn dependencies between distance positions. In the transformer that is reduced to a constant number of operations are byte at the cost of reduced effective resolution. Due to averaging attention-weighted positions, on effect, we counteract with multi-header attention as described in section 3.2. Self-attention, sometimes called intra-attention, is an attention mechanism relating different positions of a single sequence in order to compute a representation of the sequence. Self-attention has been used successfully in a variety of tasks, including reading comprehension, abstract, abstractive summarization, textual entailment, and learning task independent sentence representations. End-to-end memory networks are based on a recurrent attention mechanism instead of a sequence-aligned recurrence and have been shown to perform well in simple language question answering and language models tasks. To the best of our knowledge, however, the transformer is the first transduction model relying entire on self-attention to compute representations of each input and output without using sequence-aligned RNNs or convolution. In the following sections, we will describe the transformer, motivate self-attention, and discuss its advantages over models such as 17 or 18 and 9. 3. Model architecture. Most competitive neural sequence transduction models have an encoder-decoder structure. Here, the encoder maps an input sequence of symbol representations to a sequence of continuous representations. Given G, the decoder then generates an output sequence of the symbol one element at a time. At each step, the model is autoregressive, consuming the previously generated symbols as additional input when generating the next. Like this figure, the transformer as model architecture. The transformer follows this overall architecture using stacked self-attention and pointwise, fully connected layers for both the encoder and decoder, shown in the left, right halves of Figure 1, respectively. 3.1 Encoder and decoder stacks. Encoder. The encoder is composed of a task of n 6 identical layers. Each layer has two sublayers. The first is a multi-head self-attention mechanism, and the second is a simple and position-wise fully connected feed-forward network. We employ a residual connection around each of the two sublayers, followed by layer normalization. That is, the output of each sublayer is layer norm x plus sublayer x, where sublayer x is the function implemented by the sublayer itself. To facilitate these residual connection or sublayers in the model, as well as the embedding layers produce output of dimension. The model is 512. Decoder. The decoder is also composed of a snag of n6 identical layers. In addition to the sublayers in each encoder layer, the decoder inserts a third sublayer which performs multi-head attention over the output of the encoder stack. Similar to the encoder, we employ residual connections around each of the sublayers, followed by layer normalization. We also modify the self-attention sublayer and the decoder stacks to prevent positions from attending to the subsequent positions. This masking, combined with the fact that the output embeddings are offset by one position, ensures that the prediction for position I can depend only on the known output at positions less than I. Attention. Section 3.2 Attention. An attention function can be described as mapping a query and a set of key value pairs to an output where the query keys, values, and output are all vectors. The output is computed as a weighted sum of the values where the weight assigned to each value is computed by a compatibility function of the query with the corresponding key. Scaled dot product attention is multi-head attention. 3.2.1 Scaled dot production attention. We call our particular attention scaled dot product attention. The input consists of queries and keys of dimension dk and values of dimension dv. We compute the dot product of the query with all keys, divide each by dk root dk, and apply a softmax function to obtain the weights on the values. In practice, we computed the attention function on a set of queries simultaneously, packed together into a matrix Q. The keys and values are also packed together into matrix K and V. We compute the matrix of outputs as attention Q K V equal softmax Qk power t and scale root dk and v. The most commonly used attention functions are additive attention and dot product multiplicative attention. Dot product attention is identical to our algorithm except for the scaling factor of 1 over root dk. Additive attention computes the compatibility function using a feed or forward network with a single hidden layer. While the two are similar in periodical complexity, dot product attention is much faster and more space efficient in practice, since it can be implemented using highly optimized matrix multiplication code. While for small values of decay, the two mechanisms perform similarly. Additive attention outperforms dot product attention, the scaling for large values of decay. We suspect that for large values of decay, the dot products grow large in magnitude, pushing the softmax function into regions where it has extremely small gradients. To counteract this effect, we scale the dot product by 1 over square root dk. 3.2.2 Multi-head attention. Instead of performing a single attention function with demodeled dimensional keys, values, and queries, we found it beneficial to linearly project the queries, keys, and values each times with different learned linear projection to decay and dv dimension, respectively. On each of these projected versions of the query and keys and values, we then perform the attention function in parallel, yielding dv-dimensional output values. These are concatenated and once again projected, resulting the final values as depicted in Figures 2. Multi-head attention allows the motor to jointly attend to information from different representation subspaces at different positions with a single attention head. Leveraging inhibits this multi-head QKV concatenation head 1 and head H WO, where H had I the attention QWIQ, KWIK, VWIV, where the projections are primary matrices WIQ is that of the R, the motor multiply decay, and WIK blah, and the expression, and the WO power is that of the RHDV multiply the motors. In this work, we employ H8 H equal 8 parallel attention layers or heads. For each of these, we use dk equal dv equal d model slug over h and 64. Due to the reduced dimension of each head, the total computational cost is similar to that of a single head attention with full dimensionality. 3.2.3 Application of attention in our model. The transformer uses multi-head attention in three different ways. First, in encoder-decoder attention layers. The queries come from the previous decoder layer, and the memory keys and values come from the output of the encoder. This allows every position in the decoder to attend over all positions in the input sequence. This mimics the typical encoder-decoder attention mechanisms in sequence-to-sequence models such as the decoder contains self-attention layers. In a self-attention layers, all of the keys and values and queries come from the same place. In this case, the output of the previous layer and the encoder, each position in the encoder can attend to all positions and previous layers of the encoder. Similarly, self-attention layers in the decoder allow each position in the decoder to attend to all positions and the decoder up to and including the position. We need to prevent leftward information flow in the decoder to preserve the autoregressive property. We implement this inside of scaled dot product attention by masking out setting to -infinite or values in the output of softmax which correspond to illegal connections. See Figure 2. 3.3 Position-wise feed-forward networks. In addition to attention sublayers, each of the layers in our encoder and decoder contains a fully connected feed-forward network, which is applied to each position separately and identically. This consists of the two linear formations with the RELU activation between FFN and a max and W2 plus B2. While the linear transformations are same across different positions, when they different parameters from layer to layer. Another way to describing this is two convolutions with the corner size 1. The dimensionality of the input and output is the model 512. Another inner layer has dimensionality DFF as 2048. 3.4 Embedding and softmax. Similar to other sequence transduction models, we use rounded embedding to convert the input tokens and output tokens to vectors of dimension d model. We also use the usual round linear transformation and softmax function to convert the decoder output to predicted next token probabilities. And in our model, we share the same weight matrix between the two embedding layers and the pre-softmax linear transformation, similar to 30. In the embedding layers, we multiply those weights by square root the model. Table 1 Table 1 Maximum path lengths per layer complexity and the minimum number of sequential operations for different layers types. Any the sequence length, these representation dimension, k is corner size of the convolutions and r the size of the neighbor in restricted self-attention. 3.5 Positional encoding. Since our model contains no recurrence and no convolution, in order for the model to make use of the order of the sequence, we must inject some information about relative or absolute position of tokens in the sequence. To this end, we add positional encodings to the input, the embeddings at the bottoms of the encoder and decoder stacks. The positional encoding have the same dimension demotter as the embeddings so that the two can be summed. There are many choices of the positional encodings, round and fixed. In this work, we use sine and cosine functions of different frequencies, where POS as a position and I as a dimension. That is, each dimension of the positional encoding corresponding to a sinusoid. The wavelength from a form a geometric progression from 2 pi to 10,000 to pi. We chose this function because we hypothesized it would allow the model to easily learn to attention by relative positions, since for any fixed offset k can be Pe plus k can be represented as a linear function of PE POS. We also experimented with using long positional embedding instead, and found the two versions of produced nearly identical result. We chose the sinusoidal version because it may allow the model to extrapolate to sequence lengths longer than the ones encountered during training. 4. Why self-attention? In this section, we compare various aspects of the self-attention layer to the recurrent and convolution layers commonly used for mapping one layer length sequence of a simple representation to another sequence of equal length width, such as a hidden layer in a typical sequence, transduction, encoder and decoder. Motivating our use of self-attention, we consider three considerata. One is the total computational complex per layer. Another is the amount of computation that can be parallelized as measured by the minimum number of sequential operations required. The third is the path length between a long-range dependencies in the network. Learning long-range dependencies is a key challenge in many sequence transduction tasks. One key factor affecting the ability to learn such dependencies is the length of the paths forward and backward signals have to traverse in the network. The shorter these paths between any combination of positions and the input and output sequences, the easier it is to learn the long-range dependency. Ah, Hence, we also compare the maximum path length between any two input and output position in networks composed of the different layer types. As noted in the table 1, a self-attention layer connects all positions with a constant number of sequencer executed operations, whereas a recurrent layer requires all and sequential operations. In terms of computational complexity, self-attention layers are faster than recurrent layer when the sequence length n is smaller than the representing dimensionality d, which is most often the case with the sentence representation used by the state-of-the-art models and machine translation, such as word piece and byte pair representations, to improve computational performance for tasks involving very long sequences. Self-attention could be restricted to considering only a neighborhood of size R in the input sequence centers around the respective output position. This would increase the maximum path length of O and slash and over R. We plan to investigate this approach further in future work. A single convolutionary layer with a kernel width k less than n does not connect all pairs of input and output positions. Doing so requires a stack of O and over k convolutionary layers in the case of the contiguous kernels, or O log kn in the case of dilated convolutions, increasing the length of the longest path between any two positions in the network. Convolutionary layers are generally more expensive than recurrent layers by a factor of k. Step-level convolution, however, decreases the complex considerable to O k and d plus n d square. If the with kn, however, the complexity of a separable convolution is equal to a combination of a self-attention layer and a point-wise feed-forward layer, the approach we take in our model. A side benefit: self-attention could yield more interpretable models. We inspect attention distribution from our models and present and discuss examples in the appendix. Not only do individual attention has clearly learned to perform different tasks, many appear to exhibit behavior related to the syntactic and the semantic structure of the sentences. 5. Training. This section describes the training regime for our models. 5.1 Training data and batching. We trained on the standard WMT 2014 English-German dataset consisting of about 4.5 million sentence pairs. Sentences were encoded using byte pair encoding, which has a shared resource target vocabulary of about 37,000 tokens. For English-French, we used the significantly large WMT 2014 English-French dataset consisting of 36 million sentences and split tokens into a 32,000 word piece of vocabulary. Sentence pairs were batched together by approximate sequence length. Each training batch constrained a set of sentence pairs containing approximately 25,000 source tokens and 25 target tokens. 5.2 Hardware and schedule. We trained our models on one machine with 8 NVIDIA P100 GPU P100 GPUs. For our base models, using the hyperparameters described throughout the paper, each training step took about 0.4 seconds. We trained the base model for a total of 100,000 steps over 20 hours. For our big models, described on the bottom of line of table 3, step time was 1.0 seconds. The big models were trained for 300,000 steps, 3.5 days. 5.3 Optimizer. We used the Aidan optimizer with beta 1 0.9, beta 2 0.8, and a absolute as a 10 power minus 9. We varied the learning rate over the course of training according to the formula L rate D model minus 0.5 dot mean step number 0.5 power 0 minus 0.5 step number dot warm up underbar steps minus 1.5. They correspond to increasing the learning rate linearly for the first warm-up steps, training steps, and decreasing it thereafter proportionally to the inverse square root of the step number. We used warm-up stats 4,000, 5.4 regularization. We employ three types of regularization during training. Table 2. The transformer achieved better BLEU scores than previous state-of-the-art models on the English to German and English to French news test 2014 test at a fraction of a training cost. Residual dropout. We apply dropout to the output of each sublayer before it is to the sublayer input and normalized. In addition, we apply dropout the sums of embeddings and positional encodings in both the encoder and the decoder stacks. For the base model, we use a rate of p-drop 0.1. Label smoothing. During training, we employed label smoothing of value epsilon ls 0.16. This is Hertz perplexity. As the model learns to be more unsure, but improves accuracy and a BLEU score. Result. Machine 6 results 6.1 machine translation. On the WMT 2014 English to German translation task, a big transformer model, Transform Big, in Table 2, outperformed the best previously reported models, including Ensemble, by more than 2.0 BLEU. Establishing a new state-of-the-art BLE score of 28.4. The compilation of this model is listed in the bottom of line of the Table 3. Training took 3.5 days on 8 P100 GPUs. Even our base model surpasses our previously published models and ensembles at a fraction of the training cost of any of the competitive models. On the WMT 2014 English to French translation task, our big model achieved a BLEU score of 14.0, outperforming all of the previously published two single models at less than a 1/4 the training cost of the previously state-of-the-art models. The transformer big models trained for English to French used to dropout rate p-drop 0.1 instead of 0.3. For the base models, we used a single models obtained by averaging the last 5 checkpoints, which were written at 10-minute intervals. For the big models, we averaged the last 20 checkpoints. We used beam search with a beam size of 4, length penalty alpha 0.6. These hyperparameters were chosen after experimentation on the developed set. We set the maximum output length during inference to input length plus 50, but terminate early when possible. Table 2 summarizes our leisure and compare our translation quality and training cost to other model architecture from the literature. We estimate the number of floating point and operations used to train a model by multiplying the training time, the number of GPU used, and an estimate of a sustained single precision floating point capacity of each GPU. The model variations. Two value event 6.2 model variation. To evaluate the importance of different components of transformer, we varied our base model in different ways, measuring the change in performance on English to German translation on the developed set use test 2013. We used beam search as described in the previous section, but no checkpoint averaging. We present this result in Table 3. In Table 3, row A, we vary the number of attention heads and attention key and value dimensions, keeping the amount of computation constant, as described in section 3.2 and 2. While single head attention is 0.9, BLEU worse than the best things setting, quality also drops off with too many heads. In Table 3, Load B, we observe that reducing the attention key size decay hurts our model quality. This suggests that determining computable is not easy, and that a more sophisticated computability function than the product may be beneficial. We further observe in loads and D and expected, bigger models are better, and drops is very helpful in avoiding overfitting. In low E, we replace our sin- sinusoidal positional encoding with a round and embedding and observe a nearly identical result to the base model. 6.3 English constituency parsing. To evaluate if the transformer can generalize to other tasks, we performed the experiment on English constituency parsing. This task presents a specific challenges. The output is subject to a strong structural constraint and is significantly longer than the input. Furthermore, other than sequence-to-sequence models have not been able to attain state-of-the-art result in a small data regime. We trained a four-layer transformer with the model 1024 on the Wall Street Journal (WSJ) portion of the Penn Bank about 4K training sentences. We also train in a semi-supervised setting using the large high confidence in the Berkeley parser corpora from with approximately 17 sentences. We used a vocabulary of 16 tokens for the WSG only setting and a vocabulary of 32 kilo tokens for a semi-supervised setting. We performed only a small number of experiments to select the dropper, both attention and the latitude. Learning rates and beam size on the section 22 developed set, or other parameters remained unchanged from the English to German-based translation model. During inference, we increased the maximum output length to input length plus 300 We used the big size of 21 and the alpha 0.3 for both WSJ only and a semi-supervised setting. Our result in a table 4 showed that despite the lag of the task-specific tuning, our model performs surprisingly well, yielding better results than all previously reported model with the exception of the recurrent neural network grammar. In contrast to RNN sequence-to-sequence model, the transformer outperformed the Berkeley parser even when training only on a WSJ training set of 40 kilo sentences. Conclusion 7. Conclusion. In this work, we presented the transformer, the first sequence transduction model based entirely on attention, replacing the recurrent layers most commonly used in encoder-decoder architectures with multi-threaded self-attention. For translation tasks, the transformer can be trained significantly faster than the architectures based on the recurrent or convolutionary convolutionary layers. On both WMT 2014 English to German and the WMT 2014 English to French translation task, we achieve a new state-of-the-art. In the former task, our best model outperforms even our previously reported ensembles. We are excited about the future of attention-based models and plan to apply them to other tasks. We plan to extend the transformer to problems involving input and output modalities other than texting and to investigate local restricted attention mechanisms to efficiently handle large input and outputs such as images, audio, and video. Making generation less sequential is another research goal of ours. The code we use to train and evaluate our core model is available at, this is TensorFlow. Acknowledgement. We are grateful to Nar, Karchi, Brenner, and Stefan Goth for their fruitful comments and corrections and inspiration. References. Attention visualization. Figure 3. An example of attention mechanism following long-distance dependence in this encoder. Self-attention is layer 5 or 6. Many of the attention has attention to a distance dependency above, making completing the phrase making more difficult. Attentions here shown only for the word making. Different colors representing different heads. Best viewed in color. Figure 4. Two attention heads also in layer 5 of 6 apparently involved in an anaphora resolution. Top full attention for head 5. Bottom isolated attention from just the word each four attention heads 5 and 6. Note that the attentions are very sharp for this word. Figure 5. Many of the attention heads exhibit behavior that seems related to the structure of the sentence. We give two such examples above from the two different heads from the encoder self-attention at layer 5 of 6. The heads clearly learn to perform different tasks. Thank you.